Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Runnebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. It's summertime and life is crazy. There's a lot going on in my life right now, including moving to a new city, and lots of other stuff. So because of that, I'm going to take a little bit of time off, but don't worry, there's still great content, including this episode. Over the next coming weeks, I will be featuring some of my friends' podcasts that I think you should check out, and also some past episodes that maybe you haven't listened to yet, or they didn't get the love they deserved at the time. You know, not everyone's gone through and listened to every episode, so they may not be new to me, but they could be new to you. So please sit back and enjoy past episodes and other great episodes from other great podcasters. I will be returning with all new episodes August 31st, and be prepared, there's going to be some amazing guests with amazing stories. Until then, keep listening and enjoy. This episode is with Jessica Buchanan. It was entitled How I Mentally Survived a Somalian Kidnapping, and it originally aired February 11th, 2023.
So I'm actually a teacher by profession. And in my mid-20s, I ended up doing a student teaching position in Nairobi, Kenya, and was then offered a permanent teaching position at this school, an international school in Nairobi, Kenya. So I took it. I loved it. It was so great. Met my husband, my now husband, in Nairobi one Saturday night when I was out with friends at a club. And there was this cute Swedish guy in the corner, and I'd never met anybody from Sweden. And that was, I guess, like 15 years ago. And we've been talking ever since. And he was actually based in Somalia working for a Swedish organization. He, at the time, was doing something like comparable to human rights law. And so we got married about a year and a half after we met, and I decided to quit my job and move up to Somalia with him. And he was based in, like, if you look at Somalia on the map, it's kind of shaped like a number 7. And so up top, at the top of the 7 is much more stable, safer, if you will, at the time anyway. And this was, again, like 12, 13 years ago. Then it was down closer to like Mogadishu, which is generally what people equate Somalia to when they hear about it on the news. And so we were up in the top in Hargeisa. And I started just trying to, keep myself busy. I was teaching English to refugees, volunteering here and there. And then I got a job with a Danish organization, the Danish Demanding Group. They're the Mine Action Unit of the Danish Refugee Council. And I became their education advisor for all of East Africa. So essentially what that meant was that I used my teaching and educational skill set to help get their messages across to the different communities that we worked in that were largely non-literate people groups, about the dangers of landmines and unexploded UXOs and ordinances, explosives essentially, that have been left over due to years of civil war.
Stuff that blows up.
Most of the areas that we worked in were post-conflict, and they were still littered with really dangerous things. And what would happen is that kids would be out playing, or in these environments, kids would be like herding cattle or goats or something, and they would see something shiny and not know what it was and pick it up, and a lot of times they would explode and kids would die, or they'd at least, be maimed or burned or blinded. So that felt like really good work, that we were doing. And it was very straightforward. We were handing out food relief for medical supplies, but I felt like what we were doing was making a difference. And I'm a very purpose-driven person, so that was important to me. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I was called upon to go do a staff training in southern Somalia in 2011, October 2011. I didn't feel good about the situation just because of the location.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of security concerns, but we did have an office down there. And a friend of mine that I'd worked with before, Paul, a Danish gentleman, was managing the program down there. And, he said it was safe and blah, blah, blah. So I canceled the training twice until we planned it a third time. I called him up again and I said, I just don't feel good about it. I don't want to go. And he, essentially was like, well, if you don't come down here, then I'm going to tell our supervisor. And, basically, I'm going to tell on you. You're going to get in trouble. And I was working in a very male-dominated work environment, one of the only women really out on the field. I worked really hard to get there, and I really loved my job. And so I felt scared, felt like I might lose my job or, be reprimanded at the very least. And I thought, I'm a school teacher from Ohio. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I don't know. Like, crazy things don't happen to girls like me, which is so naive and ridiculous now, to think, and just very privileged way to think, really. And so I got on a plane, go down there, do our staff training. It's 3 days. First 2 days, everything goes fine. The third day was what I was worried about because we actually had to move from one office across town to the other office. And, if things are going to happen, it's probably going to happen when you're in transit. So I just need to get across town, do the training, get back across town, and then get on a plane the next morning and get out of there. And so that was my
Wait, what?
my
That
plan.
was it? That was your whole
That was
travel
it. That's
plan?
all I had to do.
I don't think
I mean, it was a little bit more,
Sorry,
a little more intense than that, but
like when I listened to your podcast there, I thought you were like driving in the middle of the desert. I didn't realize it was just across town.
well, it was a town in the middle of the desert.
Right. Fair enough.
So, it's not like I'm driving through Washington, D.C., where I live now. I mean, these places are like out in the middle of nowhere. And when I say like town, I mean, it's a village,
Right.
essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we get there, do the training, and it's around 3:00 in the afternoon. It's October 25th. And I'm waiting for this convoy of land cruisers to come and pick us up and take us back to the guest house. So where we're going to, where we've been, where we're going to spend the night and then head out the next morning. I'm going to head back to Hargeisa the next morning. We have a national security advisor, a man named Abdi Rizak. And I realize now that he kept getting on and off the phone, which was probably pretty odd. Like he kept saying, okay, it's time to go. No, wait, we need to wait 5 minutes. They're not ready yet. Okay, it's time. It's like going back and forth like this. And I just didn't really think much about it. You get desensitized to a lot of stuff, I think, when you are working in environments like that. Like, I think if you thought that one small thing was peculiar or could be a sign that something is like impending doom or something, you would never leave your compound and you would never get any work done. And so you just start like ignoring signs, which is really dangerous, right? And so finally 3 land cruisers come in through the gates and they're ready to go. There's armed guards in the front, armed guards in the back, and then we have a driver who's driving Paul and I, and Abdi Rizak gets in next to us. We pull out through the gates and we start heading through town. And I use that term town loosely. And, we're probably going like 35 miles an hour, not fast, but, fairly speedy given the conditions of the road that we're driving on and whatnot. And I'm not really paying attention. I remember I'm on my phone. I think I was texting my husband and, what do you do? When you're in the car, you like check out thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, or if you're going to get your workout in or whatever. And then another vehicle comes up on the right side and like cuts us off and splashes mud up all over the windows and the windshield because it had been raining. And I couldn't see out the windows. And I thought, my God, what a jerk. Like, who drives like that? And then I hear the crack of the butt of an AK-47 on the car hood. And then all of a sudden we're surrounded by very angry men who are screaming in Somali. And, you know, I had been stopped at traffic stops before by police and, you know, even been in some maybe hairy situations. This definitely had a different feeling to it, and things just happened really quickly. So there wasn't any time to process. Then Abdi Razak is sitting on my right, and his door is pulled open, and there's a very angry looking man dressed in a police uniform, and he pulls open the door. He has an AK-47. He drags Abdi Razak out of the car, and then I remember him slamming him in the head with his gun, and then he gets in next to me and puts the barrel of the gun to my head and starts screaming at the driver to drive. And we just take off. Like, I have no idea how fast we were going, but it felt like we were going 100 miles an hour, like basically down camel tracks. They weren't even like real roads. And we drive out of town, and it's just us. The other two vehicles that had our armed guards in them were gone. As far as I could tell, there were no shots fired. There was no
what
effort.
Ultimately happened to them?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And it's interesting because I've told the story like literally hundreds of times. But I have not really thought about the guards that were in those cars. I can imagine I like the whole thing was essentially a setup. Like we wouldn't know that until we were far into the whole ordeal.
Oh, but so you think the guards were maybe in on it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Abdi Razak was in on it.
I see.
Yeah, we would later find out that we had been trafficked, if you will. We'd been sold by Abdi Razak to this group that had taken over our car, and they were driving us out into the desert. And I think at this point, I'm really just thinking like, we're probably just going to be carjacked, right? Like that's common in this area of the world. They'll take all of our stuff. They'll probably kick us out of the car and we'll have to walk back to town. That happens. But we keep driving further and further out of town, and like hour after hour passes, and I can see that they're not going to stop. They're not going to kick us out of the car. They've taken all of our stuff, but they haven't stopped to let us out. And Paul is still sitting in the front seat. He turns around and he looks at me, and I remember kind of like whispering to him, like mouthing to him, like, what's happening? And he just says, we're being kidnapped. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I just start to panic. Like, I had dealt with panic attacks before, but nothing like this. Like, I'm like starting to hyperventilate, like, but I'm doing it very quietly, right? Like, like hyperventilating inside. Like, there's nowhere for me to go. There's nothing for me to do. Like, I know instinctively that I can't start screaming or shouting or crying. I mean, I'm just surrounded. Now there are several men in the car. They've stopped. More people have gotten in the car. I'm surrounded by guns, like big guns. And we drive for hours, and then we stop, and then they force us into different vehicles, and we do this like over and over again until it gets dark. And we've probably been in the car for like 9 or 10 hours at this point. It's the middle of the night. And then finally we stop in just some seemingly arbitrary place out in the middle of the desert. And we're forced out of the vehicles and ordered to walk out into the desert. And I'm thinking, like, this is it. Like, this is the end of my life. Like, I don't know if everybody does this, but like, you know, I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about what the end is going to be like for me at this point. And Never in a million years could I have ever predicted such a violent ending for my life. At the time I'm 32 years old. I'm thinking about the fact that I had like just worked and I hadn't taken time to like do something I really wanted to do, which was become a mom. I'd lost my mom actually the year before, really suddenly, very tragically. And I mean, I just kept thinking about her and actually like talking to her and asking her to help me be dignified and strong. For some reason, that felt very important to me. I didn't want to beg at the end of my life. I'm thinking it's inevitable that I'm going to be marched out into whatever this is, whoever. I have no idea who has me. I have no idea how many more people there are. I don't know what they're going to do to me before they kill me. That is definitely a thought that's going through my head.
So were you calm? Like you just kind of accepted the situation and was like, well.
No, I mean, I'm pleading. I'm pleading with God.
Right. Okay. Internally.
I'm internally. I think I'm crying. I'm whispering, probably. I'm talking to myself. I am not talking to them. I am not engaging with them. I'm doing what they tell me to do. And that's just walk. We're like marching, essentially, like just like Paul and I walking, like tripping over. You can't see anything. It's just pitch black, tripping over thorn bushes, picking ourselves back up. I can remember like gashing my leg open at one point and feeling it bleeding and thinking, oh, and it hurt, right? Like it's throbbing. Like when, if you a deep cut thinking, this is good. I can feel something still. So this must mean I'm still alive, because I think it felt like such a out of body experience. Like I don't think I've ever had another, other than like having a panic attack. I've never had an experience where I felt like I was outside of my body like this, like I was hovering over myself, but I could feel that pain. And I thought, okay, well, I'm still here then. Right. And that has become something that I go back to when I am in pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional pain, of like, okay, well, this pain, I can feel it. This is good, right? This means I'm still here. Like all is not lost. I'm still here. And we walk for a really long time. That's my recollection. It might not have been, but it felt like a really long time. And then we're told to stop and get down on our knees. Like execution style. And we are like, we hang out like that for a little while. And I'm just thinking like, I don't really know I don't know what I did to get here. Like, I don't know what I did to deserve this. Like, I'm a good person. I came here to help. How on earth is this happening to me? And then one of them just says, sleep. Like, his meaning is that we need to lay down and go to sleep. And it's so interesting how your body will take over because your mind has reached its limit. It cannot carry on and function anymore. And so my whole body just shut down and I passed out. And I guess I fell asleep. Something. I lose consciousness of some sort.
Do you think that was like a mind game they were playing with you, like making you feel like you were about to be executed? Just to wear you down?
I think it was like establishing control and authority. Like they wanted me to know from the onset that they were in charge.
Right. It wasn't like they
100%.
kidnapped you and then turned around right away and said, don't worry, we're just using you for ransom. We're not.
No.
Right.
They wanted me to be very, very afraid.
Right. Okay.
The entire time. Yeah. Yeah. And then I wake up the next morning in what I would call my very own curated version of hell that would drag on for a really long time.
How many months was it?
3. Yep. We were out there for 93 days. We kept waiting to be like, like you see these things on the movies or whatever, like surely they're going to take you to like a cell or house or something, right? Like lock you in a closet or something. So on one hand, I think I'm really lucky because that never happened.
Mm.
But on the other hand, I lived outside for 3 months. And Somalia is like, it's harsh. Like, it's really cold at night. It's really hot during the day. I think it's taken me a really long time to sort through things in the aftermath. In my healing journey, I guess will probably never really be done. But I can look back now and see that am infinitely lucky on so many fronts. But that time out there in nature was an opportunity for me to really like connect with my mom who was gone, and for me to connect with myself in the moments when my mind could be still enough for me to do so, when I wasn't panicking and freaking out and stressed and scared. There were definitely windows of time where I could be introspective, in a way that I've not sure. I mean, when you're like literally on the brink of dying all the time, like you have to sort some shit out. And so I can see now that I was lucky. I am lucky to have gotten to have the opportunity to do that.
Oh, so you are seeing some of the positives. Wow. Or you're able to get some positives out of this experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Something I often think about, like all that other stuff, plus just there must be extreme boredom. Like that for someone with ADHD, that's like, it's like a death sentence.
And you get really creative. Like I had nothing. Like there were like maybe 10 days or something where a doctor brought out 4 books and I read, I think maybe it was just 3. They were novels, and I'm an avid reader, always have been. I've never been so grateful for books in my life. But they got taken away because we were always being like punished because negotiations weren't moving in the right direction or whatnot. So they would take something away, and we didn't have very much for them to take away, like water, food, books. But sometimes I read these accounts of hostages where they have like books and notepads and pens, and they can like keep a journal or a diary of everything that happened the whole time. And I'm like, oh my God, if only, I was like literally sitting there playing with goat poop, that had dried up, and making tic-tac-toe games out of it, or trying to remember how to do geometry, or, stuff like that, trying to remember lyrics to songs. I did have like this I'm a very spiritual person. So I had a very, like, I would call it a spiritual,
awakening
experience, really.
Oh, okay.
I think it led to an awakening for sure. I don't think I had the awakening then, but I definitely felt like I had a unique opportunity to review my life. And I thought about like stories I'd heard about the Buddha, reaching enlightenment while sitting under a tree, or Jesus wandering through the desert, right, for 40 days and 40 nights, or, every religious tradition has saints and teachers that had some form of like experience suffering. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, maybe this is mine. Like, maybe this is my chance to sort through some stuff. So, I made myself very busy mentally with doing this life review that I now, I'm a busy mom and wife and entrepreneur. Like, I don't have time to sit around and review my life. Like, like I did when was sitting there under a tree with nothing to do. And, you know, like I would just get really detailed about memories of when I was a kid and, you know, things that my mom had said that were really traumatizing and things that, you know, my mom dealt with her mental health and battled mental illness pretty much my entire childhood. And, you know, really like looking at that and examining that and how that impacted me and, you know, looking at relationships I got myself into that were, abusive and, like connecting a lot of dots that I had not taken the time to do. And so it was really interesting, you know, couple of weeks, maybe a month that I spent like every day. It was like my job, you know, after I woke up and had usually, I guess if we got a cup of tea or something, I would like get myself set up and be like, okay, like this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to think about everything that happened to me when I was 10 years old and what did it mean and how did I react and why did I react that way? I mean, I just like the whole thing. And, you know, before I knew it, I was so deep into all of that, all of those memories and that life that I had lived, and also thinking about like, well, what am I going to do differently if I make it out of here, and how am I going to approach my life now? You know, if I'm lucky enough to live through this, what are some things that I'm going to change, and what are some things? Who are some people that I'm going to get rid of? You know, like the relationships that I'm not going to maintain. What am I going to put up with, and what do I really want? So it really was a transformational experience in so many ways.
Are you living that life now that you had thought about? Like,
yeah, I think so. I mean, it always looks differently than you think it's going to. And I visualized a lot. Like I would get so deep into like my head because really what else was there to do? But I like visualized, I really decided that if I was going to get out of here, I wanted to become a mom. Or I didn't want to put that off anymore. And I would have these really like detailed visualizations of like, being in my apartment in Nairobi, and there was always a baby boy in those visualizations. And I was like laying him down in bed and like getting into bed next to him. And it was, you know, like very detailed. Like I could get in it so deep. I could feel the crispness of the sheets and how cool they were. And I could feel the breeze coming in through the open window. And I would just do this every night. Right.
Like manifesting in a way.
Yeah. And I'm a big, huge manifester, like super, because I mean, how could I not be, right? Like I wouldn't be alive if manifesting didn't work and visualization didn't work. Like, do you know how many times I like sat out there in the desert and really like embodied what it meant to like what freedom felt like?
Did you manifest this conversation with me?
Sure.
Like, oh, I can't wait to talk to that guy.
The bunny hugs guy. No, but I mean, I heard not so long ago, someone said, how did they say it? You don't get what you want. You don't get what you want out of life. You get what you expect. And I was like, oh, that's something interesting to think about.
So I should have higher expectations.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want something, you should expect it, that it's done. Right? Like I expected, I don't think it ever really settled into my mind that I was not going to survive. That I wasn't going to get out of there.
Right. Like you were worried and scared about it, but you never actually convinced yourself this is how it's going to end.
No. Once I lived through those first couple of days, I felt pretty sure I was going to survive. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I pretty much figured I was in it for the long haul, you know, and I couldn't even think about that. I couldn't think like, oh, this is going to take like a year or 2 years or, 3 years, because they often do.
Yeah. Boy, you got to really live in the moment.
Yeah. And take it. Sometimes it's minute by minute. Sometimes I could do day by day. Sometimes I could even take it at like, okay, I'm going to take this week. I can take it in increments of 7 days. But everything I employed, like every strategy I used out there in the desert, I have had to use in regular life to just get through it, because life is really hard. And oftentimes I do feel like we're being held hostage to something. Whether it's our jobs or
the dishes,
our role in our family, the dishes, right? Cleaning the bathroom. Maybe it's our mental health. I think we just got through, I guess we're through it, the pandemic. Like, trust me, being stuck and quarantined and not being able to leave your house, that feels like that's what being held hostage feels like. Not knowing what's going to happen, not being able to make decisions for yourself, being told what to do, and not knowing sometimes where your next meal is coming from. Like, those are all very significant, traumatic experiences that I think we're going to deal with for a really long time, like collectively.
I agree. Yeah. I have a couple teen boys, and I can still see the effects on them every day. Like, like socially and stuff. I just recalled that another thing you kind of did to pass the time at one point anyway was you asked if you could help cook the meals with the guy that was cooking, and you kind of became he became friendly with you a bit.
Yeah, we called him, his name was Dair. We called him Helper. Paul and I, we had nicknames for different pirates. They called themselves pirates sometimes. They weren't real pirates. They were just
dickheads. Yeah.
Or that. I would say that people do bad things when they have no options. And I don't know what it feels like to be born into a time and space and culture where the average life expectancy is 46 years old and people live on less than $1 a day. I'm not excusing them, but I'm also saying that I understand in my own situation why desperation causes people to do bad things. And now I have 2 kids. I mean, I would move mountains for them, right? If they were hungry or they were sick. So I get that on I can never really, really, truly get it, but I can get it on a conceptual level, maybe. So Dair had 8 kids. He was a driver. It was always very, he wanted to make it sure that we understood that he was not a kidnapper. He was not a part of these pirates, but he was just here to drive. He was very religious. He prayed 5 times a day. And then he was kind. He slept next to me most nights. I was never sexually assaulted. I don't know how in God's name that didn't happen to me. I was surrounded by men, anywhere from like 9 to 30 men at all times for 93 days.
Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is supported by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for about 20 years. If you live in Western Canada, especially the prairies, or spent any time here, you've probably fueled up or bought groceries at a co-op. You might even have a co-op number, or 2, or 3. You know if you know. But co-op is not just a gas bar or grocery store. Although co-op is those things too, it's a different kind of business. Co-op members are owners and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at co-op.crs. One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can?
And I think that he had something to do with that. He was a little bit older. I think he was respected in the group, and I think he protected me as much as he could. And he would, like go into town probably to see his wife and his kids and come back. They worked in shifts, like 5-day shifts. So I was always tremendously afraid when he was gone. But he would come back, and he would bring me like fruit, or he would bring me a comb. I remember he brought me a comb for my hair because he noticed that I had not combed my hair in a while. And he, he taught me how to make bread. Like they have this way of cooking bread underneath the sand, which is kind of cool, actually. Very resilient, tough, resourceful people. And taught me, like how to make the tea and what to do, because I felt like I needed to have something to do, and I needed to have some sort of purpose in order to not lose my mind. And so I don't know if he got that or what, but he was at least amenable to helping me like preserve my sanity in that way.
And as time went on, you actually became very physically ill. And so then, that's just another layer of torture, basically. It was your kidneys that were starting to shut down. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I got a urinary tract infection because, I'm like living out in the dirt. I didn't shower the whole time.
By choice?
I mean,
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm sorry. I'm such a smart ass. God damn it.
Yeah, no, not by choice. But I did perfect the spit bath, I thought, pretty well.
Like a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Like wash little areas. But you're also toileting out in the desert. And also like, getting like horrible GI issues and stuff. It was just, oh God, it was awful. And losing weight really rapidly, like
I'm not a woman, and there's also like female needs and things. And
exactly. Yeah. And you just can't stay clean. So all of that caused me to get a urinary tract infection, which was untreated because they wouldn't bring me a doctor. They wouldn't bring me medicine. And so what happens if you have an infection? Well, it's going to get worse, right? And it's going to start affecting your kidneys. And I'd had a kidney infection before. So I knew what it felt like. I knew what was happening. Like every time I tell the story to a group of people and I say something about having an untreated UTI, like every woman in the audience, like just cringes and is like, because it's horrific. Even if you do have medication, it's horrific. So just like in intense pain, a fevering, like really high fevers, hallucinating from the fever, and thinking, okay, well, I guess this is how it's going to happen. They're going to kill me, but not the way I thought they were going to. And we had a series of proof of life calls where they would put us on the phone and we would talk to someone who was like a representative for our organization in our family, who I guess was like just basically like a communicator, really. And the last one, I didn't know it was our last one. It happened on January 16th, 2012. So
that was yesterday.
it was yesterday. 11 years yesterday.
Wow.
I didn't even know. I didn't even realize it was the 16th. And I just said, like, you got to get me out of here because I'm going to die. Like, here's my symptoms. Here's what's happening. Like, I can't, you cannot, you are responsible for me. You are my organization. you need to do something, get me out of here. And so, what I didn't know then is that on the other side, my family, my husband was working directly with the FBI. And then they were coordinating with my organization. And I mean, they were just like tirelessly beating down doors, like, every meeting that they could get to with any person that they thought might have some influence. And there are a series of circumstances that if those happen, then it sets the wheels in motion for a military rescue. And see, I don't remember all of them, but a couple of them are if the situation, like if negotiations stall for like a long period of time and there's no communication and there's no movement, then that might set a military rescue or an operation, set those plans in motion. The other one is if the hostage is injured or has become sick, that they're worried that there's going to be loss of life.
Right.
So my husband took my list of symptoms to the FBI, and they felt pretty certain that I was going to die. My doctor said I had about 10 days or 2 weeks left if I was left out there untreated. I didn't know this, but this is what he was telling them. So they took the information, and it went all the way up the chain of command to President Obama, and he gave his approval for a military rescue operation to take place. So that we fast forward to 10 days, and I'm really super sick. I'm declining rapidly, and it would be January 24th, then 2012. And I go to bed that night. And by that, I mean, I pull my mat out from underneath a tree, and then I go sleep out in the open because we weren't allowed to sleep under trees for some reason. And I always, went to sleep probably between 6 and 7 because that's when it got dark. And I woke up a couple hours later with the need to be sick. And I remember kind of dragging myself up and saying the word toilet, which is how I asked to be excused from my mat. And there were 9 guys on the ground that night, but no one was awake, which was really weird because there was always at least one person, one pirate who was keeping guard. But they were all passed out for some reason that night. And I say the word toilet again, but no one wakes up. And like my need becomes pretty great. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to drag myself to a nearby bush and do what I need to do. But I had a small pen light that I was flashing that they had given me. Because I wanted them, like if somebody did wake up and saw that I wasn't there, I was afraid they would think that I was trying to escape. And then who knows what would happen if that's what they thought. And so I'm flashing this light the whole time. Go to the bush, do what I need to do, come back, lay down, wrap myself up in my blanket. And I can hear something like not too far away, but off in the distance a little bit. And it's like something is walking through the brush, like when you hear twigs snapping or grass breaking or something. And I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. Like what would that be? And it was light, right? So I thought it must be an animal or bugs. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not in the mood for whatever this is, right? I just need to sleep because it's my only escape. And then like 30 seconds maybe goes by, and Dyer, helper, he's sleeping next to me. I hear him like jump up out of a dead sleep. And I can't see him because the stars and everything had clouded over. So it was really, really dark, but I can kind of make out his shape. But more than anything, I feel that he's terrified. And he starts like whisper screaming at the other guys to get up, get up. And they're all kind of like rousing, they've been asleep and picking up guns. And then the night just erupts into automatic gunfire. And I can't see what's happening. I can hear what's happening. And they're just like falling to the ground, like just dropping to the ground. And I'm just hearing these really awful sounds. And I'm trying to make myself like as small as I possibly can down into the ground, trying to disappear because I'm thinking that we're probably being kidnapped by another group, which has always been a threat. And I'm thinking, too, like, well, I definitely don't have what it takes to like survive being kidnapped by another group in the shape that I'm in. It's better the devil I know, right? I know who I can, rely on a little bit, and I don't have it in me to survive this. And I'm just like, I do remember saying out loud, like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I'm just like there's nothing, like, I don't know what to, just, oh God. And then I feel somebody grab my legs and my shoulders, like hands on my legs and my shoulders. And I'm trying to, wrap my blanket around me, trying to keep myself safe, trying to push away. And the blanket's pulled down from my head and I can't see anything. It's just really dark figures, like maybe some black masks or something. And I hear this young American man's voice. And he knows my name. And he says, Jessica, it's okay. You're safe. We're the American military. We're here now. We're going to take you home. And all I can say like, one of them helps me sit up and I just start like shaking. I'm complete shock, just saying over and over again, like, you're American? You're American? I don't understand. Huh? You're American? Yeah. Like, like, where did you come from? I do not get this. And he says, we've been watching you for a really long time and know how sick you've been. And yeah, we're going to take you home. And that would begin, I guess, the next part of my journey, which is what I call surviving survival. Where everybody thinks, oh, it's like so easy now, right? Like, you've survived this horrible trauma and now you're home and you're back with your family and it's all going to be great. And actually, it's really not. It's really hard because you've gone through this horrific thing that no one can relate to.
Right.
Like, no one.
Yeah. It's not like going to an AA meeting.
No, there's no support group for returning hostages. Well, there is now, but there wasn't then. There certainly are very few women who have been through something like this, who have survived. And so I just felt like I had traded one desert for another. And I was in an emotional desert for a really long time. I realized I should have been more specific with the universe because I got pregnant like 3 weeks after the rescue. So,
whoa, wasted no time.
Yeah, no, it was a happy reunion. And then I'm like,
your urinary tract must have healed up quick.
It was just like, it was a miraculous thing. Like, how on earth could my body have like kept it, like gotten pregnant and then kept it? Like, none of us understood. Even my doctors were like, I don't understand how this happened. And he was such a gift and such a blessing, right? Which is what everybody said. You should just be happy. Like, look how lucky you are. But no, I've also got
settle down and be happy.
PTSD and anxiety and postpartum depression and I don't have a mom anymore, so I don't have anybody to help me and guide me. I don't know what am I allowed to curse on here?
Sure.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like,
your in-laws are in Sweden.
Yeah, my in-laws are in Sweden. So it was I kind of felt like, can't I just get a break here? And so that was another thing to navigate and another thing to have to survive. So now I've got a baby and I've got PTSD and I've got a Swedish husband and,
You sound like that's a bad part. Now I got a Swedish husband.
Well, it's not easy. No. And then, we tried to make it work in Kenya, which had been home. That's where my son was born, but it ultimately just didn't feel good for me. It felt really hard. And so we relocated to the States, which my husband had never lived here before. So that was new and exciting for him, but it wasn't like, I was like, oh, this was not part of my plan. Like, this was not how I had envisioned my life. And I was actually just telling someone in a meeting this morning, like, we've been in the DC area for 10 years now. Time just flies. And I was like, I hated it for the first 5 years, like hated it and wanted to get out, like looked for every opportunity I could to get out of here. And then once I decided, I just made a conscious decision, like, hey, I'm going to stop hating this and see what happens. Well, then your whole life just like unfolds as it should. And so it's been a really long journey.
Oh God, I can imagine.
Yeah,
I
but
can't
it's
imagine
been
actually.
really interesting. It's been, well, we've all got our journeys, right? Like,
Yeah,
I have a book coming out next week, actually.
you sure
And
do.
it's called Deserts to Mountaintops. And for me, that's very literal, because I have walked out of the desert, and recognizing that our lives hold many deserts and many mountaintops, and if we're lucky, our experiences will hold that for us. But yeah, this has been quite the hike for me. But it feels good to be on the mountaintop for now, knowing that I'll have another desert at some point, I'm sure. But yeah,
so
it's been interesting.
So what kind of treatment or what have you done to improve your mental health since being back? I'm assuming counselings or meds and
all of it, everything, you name it, I've done it. It short of like psychedelics. Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, medication when it got really bad. I had a lot of like trouble with anxiety and a lot of panic attacks before, actually. But then they were just exacerbated by no sleep with you know, a newborn, and then the PTSD, like the nightmares were really bad.
Have you
for
tried
a long
that
time?
EMDR, I think it's called?
Yep. EMDR was really effective. I will say that what I found to be the most effective treatment for me is accelerated resolution therapy, ART, which is I would say it's similar to EMDR, but it's much faster in its efficacy. And like I spent an entire weekend, like a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday working with a practitioner. But even like things, I had this horrible back pain in one area of my back that we couldn't find any physical problem with it. And I'd been to all kinds of doctors and like all alternative practitioners, everything. No one could find anything wrong with it, but it was excruciating at times. And it ended up being attached actually to a memory, to a trauma during the kidnapping. And that came up during ART, and we dealt with it. And
sounds like body talk.
Yeah. Your body keeps the score, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we dealt with that, and I haven't had any problems in that area of my back, which to me just blows my mind because it was debilitating. So I continue, like I'm a big, huge proponent of therapy. Just like talk therapy, is hugely helpful for me even still. And then I spend a lot of time like in reflection. I think meditation and journaling and silence is really, really important to me and my mental health. Like I just spent 10 days on the road for fun and for work and being around people the whole time, and I can't do that. So I'm having to like go back to center and get back in alignment and do some course correction because my mental health feels precarious when I am not taking care of myself in that way. So
yeah, I just did
that's what worked for me.
Just did a big live talk thing on Friday, and you're in front of a big audience and people talking to you and you're schmoozing and whatever. And then like, yeah, it takes me quite a while to And then, like, it's not like I'm personable and stuff, and people think I'm an extrovert, but yeah, no, it actually takes a long time for me to recharge.
It takes a lot to recover from that. Yeah.
And now you got a book to promote and probably
especially
do a
when you're
tour.
talking about
Yeah. If you're talking about poopy stuff,
trauma and the things that have happened to you is really hard. Yeah. So the book will come out next week, January 25th, which is the anniversary of my rescue, which is a very auspicious date for me. And this book is actually an anthology, so it's 22 women's stories of how they have journeyed from their own desert to their own mountaintop. And the common thread is our stories are different. And this is just a human experience, but we have been conditioned to abandon ourselves. And so to stay silent, to keep peace. And I don't think that's just a woman-focused issue. I think that that's a human issue. And so that's what this book addresses, that very human practice of self-abandonment, and how do we journey back up to that mountaintop to our own self-love. And so I'm really excited about it and really proud of the women who've contributed. And there's some really incredible stories, really badass, strong, resilient women. So it's wonderful to be in their company.
The speaking and that project, like your book project, was that therapeutic for you?
Yeah, I think in a different way. I think one of the hardest parts about the kidnapping and the trauma was that I felt like purposeless when I came out. I'm a very purpose-driven person. And so I need to be very connected to my work in that regard. And I think for a long time, I walked around thinking that my purpose had kind of shriveled up in the desert and died. And it hadn't. It had just gone dormant so that I could heal to the extent that I have healed. And this book project has opened up so much for me in terms of just connecting back with something that feels really meaningful and purposeful. And I've always said that, like, one of the ways I have been able to deal with this trauma is to have, to make it mean something. And I think that's how we survive, is we find the meaning in our ordeals. And this is
make it worth it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, surviving is always worth it, but maybe it's the teacher in me. I need to find the lessons
right,
in order to make it so I can get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think I could.
Do you hold resentment towards Paul for getting you in that situation in a way?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's taken. I don't think I'm over that yet. I'm still trying to unravel that. I think.
So you guys weren't besties in the desert?
I mean, we were, in the sense that we needed each other to not lose our minds.
Right.
But we do not have a relationship now. I'll put it that way.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's good for me. It was a boundary. Yeah. It was empowering for me to say, you know what? You made a really bad decision that changed the trajectory of my life, and no one has taken responsibility for that still. So I don't need to have you in my life. Because, I was raised to be the nice Christian girl, that forgave and forgot. And I don't, that's just another act of self-abandonment. So, yeah, so that's been really empowering to say, yeah, I don't need that.
That resentment doesn't keep you up
at night,
It doesn't
eat at me.
Yeah, okay.
No, does he do any... It's very...
Sorry, I was going to say, does he do any speaking about it or writing or anything? Or is he...
I have no idea.
No idea. Oh, he's from Denmark, though, you said.
Denmark, right? Yeah. And he's quite a bit older than me. I would say he's probably in his 70s now. So I would say no. Yeah, I would imagine no, he doesn't. But I don't know.
Don't care. Don't know, don't care.
I mean, kind of. You do you. I'm
Right,
gonna do
right,
me.
right.
Sure. I hang out on Instagram a lot. I love that space. I think it's super fun.
Me too.
So please look me up, Jessica C. Buchanan. And if you want to be inspired, go to my website, what is my website? Well, you could go to Deserts to Mountaintops or justbuchanan.com and check out the book, couple of books we've got on there and all the things. We've got another anthology that we're going to start in February, actually, and that is our journey to reclaiming our bodies. So I'm definitely looking for women or individuals who identify in that way, who want to share and write about how they've reclaimed their bodies.